Well, welcome to the Capital City Estates Chambers Estates Annexation Information Forum. This is meant to be informational, informal, and a good time to ask questions. So thank you, residents, for being here. We're going to have a formal public hearing April 1st. My name is Jessica Brandt. I'm an associate planner here at the City of Lacey, and I'll be moderating this forum tonight. We have a number of presenters here with us from the City of Lacey. We have Ryan Andrews, our planning manager, Scott Egger, Public Works Director, Jason Kashani, Utilities Engineer, and they're all here to answer your questions when we get to that part of the forum. So the agenda tonight has two items. It's going to be a presentation part and then questions and answers. So Ryan, Scott, and Jason will provide some background information to start us off. And the presentation part of the agenda will last probably about 20 to 25 minutes. And then we'll have the rest of the time to answer questions. And we'll be here till about 6 p.m. Hopefully much of the presentation content will answer some of the questions you had coming into this open house. So if you haven't used the Q&A function on Zoom, it's pretty straightforward. You should see a Q&A at the bottom of your screen. You just go ahead and click that. You can type in your questions and they'll get queued up in the order that they come in. And I'll look through them to make sure we get to as many as we can. There's a caveat: if the answer is long and complicated, tangentially related, or needs more research, we're happy to email you afterward and get you more information. We want to make sure to get all the relevant questions that will benefit most of you in attendance. Once again, this is informational only. No decisions are being made tonight. We just want to answer questions for residents in this area and provide you all with as much information as we can before the formal public hearing, April 1st at City Council. Also, this is being recorded, so those of you who couldn't attend live are able to watch it later. It's going to be posted on the city's YouTube channel, so let your neighbors know if they couldn't make it here tonight. Now, I'm happy to turn this over to our expert panelists. I'm going to start with Ryan Andrews, our planning manager.
Thanks, Jessica. That was a great introduction. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. Really appreciate the ability to get the word out about an upcoming annexation in and around your neighborhood, and a little bit more about what that might mean for you here in the near future. So starting out, I wanted to give a little bit of background, a little bit about the timeline of events here moving forward before we dive into a little bit more information about the annexation itself. First, starting with the annexation and how it was initiated. It was actually initiated by the Lacey City Council. They used the petition method of annexation. There's various different methods through state law that allow different methods for annexation. One is an election, one is City Council can do it by resolution for unincorporated islands, but the method that they're using for this one is a petition. That was begun on February 18th, and they utilized our existing power of attorney agreements. So the city is holding several agreements with property owners in this area, and you may be one of them, that in order to get Lacey Utilities, you've signed that power of attorney that allows the city to act in your place when it comes to matters of annexation. So that is how things are moving forward. I'll provide a little bit of additional information here in a little bit about what the power of attorney kind of looks like and how many of those have been signed. As Jessica mentioned, there is an upcoming public hearing on April 1st at 4:00 p.m. with the Lacey City Council. So we as staff, our role is to provide the council with information related to this annexation, but we're not the decision makers. The Lacey City Council actually is. So as part of that public hearing, they will be accepting both oral comments at the actual meeting, also written comments as well. And you feel free, if you have written comments and want to get those in prior to that April 1st meeting, you can email me directly. And there's my email, randrews@ci.lacey.wa.us. And I'll make sure that the city council gets those for that April 1st hearing. There's no difference between an oral or a written comment. One does not mean more than the other. So if you do have comments on the annexation, let me know. And there's my email there. We'd be happy to get that to the city council. We are expecting that after that April 1st meeting, the council would move to send this to the Thurston County Boundary Review Board, who is an ad hoc committee that reviews all annexations in Thurston County for a state mandated 45-day review. We're anticipating that that would happen in mid-April. With after that, an anticipated adoption date of June 17th for the annexation. After that, the city is actually required to do a census. So that means we actually have to go and go door to door and complete a census. And that conceivably will be done this summer. In our COVID times, we're having to do that a little differently. I think you could probably imagine that there will be some online methods to doing that rather than going door to door like we used to do. So stay tuned on that. But we do have to, for state record keeping purposes, and for revenue purposes, do a census, and that'll happen this summer. Ultimately, the annexation would be completed by September 1st, given these timelines. So you can imagine by the end of summer, essentially, that it's conceivable this area could be in the city limits. So I wanted to add a little bit of local flavor, if you will, to the presentation. And I asked our museum curator to provide some information on what she found, what she could find related to the area. And, we didn't find a lot in terms of like pictures and those kinds of things. But what we did was we found a couple of advertisements from, at that point, the Morning Olympian in 1963, when Capital City Golf Club was under construction. We couldn't find anything for Chambers Estates. I think you'd all have to laugh that, back then a price for a lot was between $1,850 and $4,000. That we've come a long way since then. Obviously, especially the Capital City Golf Course has meant a lot to the community over the time, including myself. I grew up here. I started golfing back in the late 80s on Capital City Golf Club with some wood clubs that my grandma handed down to me. So it is a pretty special area with a lot of history, and it's kind of cool to see these old advertisements. So when we're talking about the area for annexation, it does include Capital City Estates, Chambers Estates, as shown on the map here. So to orient yourself, Yelm Highway is at the north end of the annexation area. It's basically between Yelm Highway and 66th Avenue on the south, Ruddle Road on the east, and the Chehalis Western Trail on the west. Everything in purple on this map is the area to be proposed for annexation. Anything that's in green is actually currently within the Lacey city limits. So you can see to get with two properties in the annexation area, the only way to do this is to come through the Lacey city limits. And what that's called is it's called an unincorporated island. And so the council's priority in annexing this area is really to kind of shore up our boundaries and get rid of the unincorporated islands that we do have in the city. And this is one of the largest, if not the largest, unincorporated island, potentially in Thurston County, as far as I'm aware. There's 288 acres in 451 separate tax parcels. The current assessed value for the area is a little bit over $134 million. I'll talk here in a little bit about what this means for you in terms of your taxes, but that is what the tax assessor is assessing this area as a whole. There's about 470 dwelling units that would be annexed, as well as 965 residents, give or take, in this area. So it would increase Lacey's overall population by about 1,000. Here's a recent aerial photograph. If you're maybe not familiar with how to read the map, but are maybe a little bit more familiar what this would look like from up above. So I did want to point out a couple of features just to orient you. We talked a little bit about the streets: Yelm Highway, Ruddle Road, 66. Here's Rainier Road that goes between Capital City Estates and Chambers Estates. The first yellow arrow here is the golf course clubhouse right off Yelm Highway, kind of orient yourself. So that the golf course, the surrounding residential, all would be part of the annexation. Similarly, we've got Chambers Estates on the west side, which would also be annexed. This would also include Hoskins Field, which is at the north end of Chambers Estates, which is a private airstrip that has served the area since the early 1960s. So outside of the annexation area, so area that's already in the city limits, would include areas to the south, like Horizons Elementary, Horizon Point, which is located a little bit to to the right of that arrow. Chambers, Prairie Elementary off Yelm Highway, also within the city limits, as well as Little Prairie Center, not the commercial area to the north. So that would include things like the Lowe's, Safeway, the Walmart grocery store, and those kinds of things. A little bit about the zoning. The zoning for the entire annexation area is all entirely one zone, which is low density residential, 0 to 4 units per acre. The good thing is that in planning for our urban growth area, so the area of unincorporated Thurston County, which is set to eventually be in the city limits like this is, we're actually required to plan jointly with Thurston County. What that means is that our zones upon annexation are the same after annexation as they were before. So those kinds of land uses and things that are associated with that zoning district, the regulations are the same between the city and the county. So that creates a lot of consistency. Basically what you'd be able to do is what in the county now is what you'd be able to do in the city after annexation from a zoning perspective. It is important to note though, upon annexation, when it comes to your building services, so things like building inspection, if you're maybe doing a building addition or adding a heat pump or replacing a furnace, something where you need a building permit, you're actually going to be served by the Lacey Building Department and no longer Thurston County. So that is one change to be aware of, is that you would have to go to Lacey City Hall to get a building permit rather than to the county courthouse, which maybe is a little bit more convenient. As I mentioned, we do have a significant number of these power of attorney agreements in place. On your screen, all those parcels that are in pink have existing power of attorney agreements that have been signed as a result of getting utility services. There are most property owners in Capital City Estates, as you can see, have signed those, and there are a small handful in Chambers Estates. What that means is that we have about almost $100 million in assessed value for this annexation, which represents about 74, almost 75% of the assessed value of the area, and 60% is what is needed to move the annexation forward. And so that's why the city council made the decision that they did to use that petition method, is that they had the 60% that is needed for annexation and started that process here a couple months ago. So what does that mean for you in terms of taxes? Let's talk about taxes in terms of property taxes first. We'll talk a little bit later about some other taxes and how that might impact your daily, your bills. So this screen has a lot of numbers on it. The main numbers to be aware of are those that are in yellow and in green. This shows on your screen here the property taxes for a typical $350,000 assessed value home in Lacey versus in unincorporated Thurston County. And we know obviously everybody's house has a different assessed value. This is just an average based on a $350,000 assessed value home. So the first item I'm going to bring to your attention is at the top of the screen. The kind of what would be going away is that green under the Fire District 3 excess, and then what would be added are the two on the yellow on the upper right taxes that would be added. There is a City of Lacey excess on a fire levy, and then that's $51.49, and then a City of Lacey levy on parks, which is $336.97. The excess on the county's portion would be going away. The rest of that, kind of the ones that are in the different shades of blue, those are all staying the same. So if you live in Lacey or if you live in unincorporated Thurston County, but within the North Thurston School District, these are the same taxes. So you'll see across the board that your taxes would not change regardless of being in the city or not, across all those different little districts and tax rates associated with them. So that would be like things like how much you pay to the state for schools, and Thurston County and Timberland Regional Library for library services and others. At the bottom in the green is the county road levy, and that would actually be going away. You actually pay an average of about $387 a year to maintain county roads. Those fees, those taxes would be going away. So overall, your property taxes, when you look at your property tax bill would be going down about $30 total, and that's that total levy here at the bottom. Talking a little bit about utility taxes and franchise fees. That's another important part of taxes that people typically don't consider. You know, I did show that the property taxes would be going down, but utility taxes would actually be increasing. And you can see there are a number of utility taxes that the City of Lacey charges that Thurston County does not. And so that's going to increase your annual tax bill. Now, you won't see that on your property taxes because it's not a property tax, but where you would see this increase is in your monthly utility statements. So things like your electric bill, your natural gas, your water, sewer, if you're on sewer, those kinds of things is where you would see those increases in rates. And on this slide, I'm not going to be able to go into every single one of them, but we're showing some average bills associated with that, with those utilities, and what those estimated costs would be associated with each one of those bills for utility taxes. The most important part of this is the bottom number there, that you can see a fairly healthy rise in utility taxes of about $280 overall on an annual basis after incorporation into the city. So what does this mean for both property taxes and utility taxes combined? So obviously we talked about your property taxes going down, but your utility taxes would be increasing. So the total tax difference between being in the city and in Thurston County, your rate would actually go up if you were in the city limits by about $281. I did break this down into a monthly, because most of you will see this on a monthly basis on those utility bills. That would be about $23.50 per month. It's important to note, though, that we do in Lacey charge a 20% surcharge associated with water for accounts not in the city limits. So if you are if you have a water bill, let's say it's $100 a month water bill, which is a substantial amount of water used, no doubt about it, it's conceivable that that 20% of that is going to go away upon annexation. So, you know, $20 of that bill would be taken off every month for a difference of about $3 a month. So really, if you, once you factor in the surcharge associated with water, it becomes very close as far as whether or not this actually increases your rates or not. So with that, we're going to move into a couple frequently asked questions. I'm going to start off here with a couple of them and then turn it over to Scott Ager to talk a little bit more about how this affects your public works services and utilities. First, how will annexation affect law enforcement and fire protection services? Fire protection is actually pretty easy. Most residents in the annexation area, if you are in Capital City Estates, are already in Lacey Fire District 3. So your service would not change. The only potential change would be for those residents in Chambers Estates. You are currently in Fire District 6, which is the East Olympia district. Upon annexation, that would mean that you would be annexed into Lacey Fire District 3. So you would actually be changing your fire service. The good news about that is that this is for Fire District 6, Chambers Estates is the only area around there that's served by Fire District 6. So it's really a little island of area that's being served. This makes it much more, those boundaries much more logical as far as what Fire District 3 would serve. And I believe Fire District 3's closest station is off of Mullen Road, which may be a little bit closer than the Fire District 6's current location or current station closest to you. The biggest change as far as these services go is obviously to law enforcement. So right now, if you were to call 911, typically you'd get a Thurston County Sheriff's deputy probably knocking on your door, depending on the severity of call. If it was a very severe call, we already have our Lacey Police Department in that area, and they do provide mutual aid right now. So I'm sure you see a lot of Lacey police in and around your neighborhoods. The main thing though is that upon annexation, that first priority responder is going to be the Lacey Police Department for any kind of service call for police. Couple more questions here. If I am annexed, will I have to switch garbage services? No, garbage service is currently provided by Pacific Disposal and would be provided by Pacific Disposal even after annexation. That does not change. The city does not have its own garbage company. How would annexation affect my home-based businesses? Essentially, if you have a legal home occupation, if you have a business that you run out of your home and you've already met county requirements, there would be no change. The city would permit that after annexation. The only difference would be that you would have to transfer your license to make sure you're in the city limits. An initial license fee is $25 for the first year, and then every annual renewal after that is $10. Will annexation affect school district boundaries? No, the school district, you're within North Thurston Public Schools and served by the schools around you. The city actually doesn't have anything to do with school district boundaries and or what schools that the kids in the area go to. That's all controlled by North Thurston Public Schools and would not be affected by this annexation. So with that, I'd be happy to turn it over to Scott Ager. Scott, do you want to give us some information on how this would affect public works services and utilities?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Thanks, Ryan. So the question, will the city take over private streets upon annexation? So streets and street assets like signs, markers, stormwater facilities, streetlights that are private before annexation remain private. Street assets that are public before annexation will remain public and will become the responsibility of the City of Lacey if the annexation is approved. So capital city estate streets are private, so those streets will remain private. And chamber estate streets are public, so Lacey would take over maintenance responsibility, again, as I noted, if the annexation is approved. So chamber estates has about 1 centerline mile of roadway, which is in good condition. We do pavement condition inspection and ratings. It's rated just right around 80, which is a pretty good condition rating. And there's about 4 sets of street signs, a couple of speed limit signs, as well as 6 street lights in Chambers Estates area. The Chambers Estates streets lights are owned by PSE, but I assume that those bills are forwarded to Thurston County. So again, if the annexation is approved, the street light billing would be transferred to the City of Lacey. And as far as stormwater and Chambers Estates go, it's mainly just a ditch system. So, and the property owners do a pretty good job of maintaining that because that's, it's like their street frontage. So with that, Ryan, could you forward to the next slide? Thank you. So the question, I live in Chambers Estates. Will the city require me to hook up to the sewer system? So before I go into that, let me give you a little bit of background on why the City of Lacey paid the sewer capital city and to pay for those connections. So there are over 400 quarter-acre lots with septic systems located in capital city, and all of that is above a fairly shallow municipal well. All of the parcels within capital city fall within what we call a wellhead protection zone. So, we monitor the flow of groundwater and we break those zones into like a 6-month time of travel, 1-year time of travel, 5-year time of travel. So all of capital city falls within that. The flow underground in this specific shallow aquifer somewhat flows from east to west. So the question has come up before, like, why not sewer Chambers Estates? Well, Chambers Estates actually for that shallow aquifer doesn't flow towards our well 4 in capital city estates. And it is completely outside the wellhead protection area. So going back to about 2004, we started noticing nitrogen levels in the well beginning to increase. And if they get to a certain point, then we would be required to treat that water. We'd have to build a water treatment facility. So we monitored that, we saw it rising, ultimately looked at other factors as well and made the decision to sewer Capital City Estates in order to protect the groundwater quality and to prevent having to spend even more money to construct a water treatment facility. And along with that, at the same time, even going further back, we had a water project planned. So we actually somewhat delayed the water project in order until a determination was made on whether we're going to sewer the area so that both projects could be built at the same time. So getting back to the same, or the original question on the slide, if I live in Chambers Estates, will the city require me to hook up to the sewer system? So the requirement for Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, it's all the same. If you are in our city limits or in our urban growth areas, which are our sewer service areas, if you're on septic and your septic system fails and the property is within 200 feet of a sewer main, then you are required to connect. And as noted on this slide, this occurs regardless of whether you're in Thurston County UGA or if you're within the current city limits. There is a sewer line that extends approximately 300 feet from Rainier Road west into Chambers Estates along 62nd. So if you happen to be on a property along that 300 feet or another 200 feet beyond, if your septic fails, then you'd be required to connect. So with that said, I'll leave it there for now. And then Jason Kashani is going to be speaking to you next and give you a little bit of information on the Capital City Estates Water and Sewer project. Jason is the engineer who designed this. So take it away, Jason.
Thanks, Scott. So this slide just illustrates our project area. It's basically encompasses all of Capital City Golf Club Estates with some surrounding lots that were also served by septic. You can see all the lots highlighted in yellow. We have about 417 parcels that we are serving with the new sewer system, with 406 of them opting in to have their septic tanks decommissioned and connect to the sewer system. So we are upwards of 97, 98% participation with this project from all the homeowners out there. Really pleased to see that. So we're, looking forward to having a hopefully cleaner groundwater aquifer to draw from there. So we're excited about that. You can see in the slide that we've divided the project right down the middle, east phase and a west phase. The east phase is currently in construction right now, roughly about 50% complete or so. We have already made about 50% of the connections and continue to connect homes as we progress daily out there. The second phase was just advertised to get bids. We opened the bids last week, and we're currently set to award the contract to a contractor here. Hopefully next week. We have it on council agenda to get that awarded. And so the way it kind of split up, is roughly about half. We had, I think, 185 lots in the first phase, and then about 232 lots in the second phase. So I guess that probably covers that slide. I'll give it back to Ryan.
Thanks, Jason. So that's pretty much going to wrap up the information that we had for you here tonight. Again, if you have any questions on something that we didn't cover, feel free to use the Q&A portion of the webinar, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. If you do want to provide official comment on the record to the City Council, that is coming up here on April 1st at 4:00 p.m. Again, you can provide oral comments. That'll be a Zoom meeting. So you can expect to be on a Zoom call for that if that's something that you would like to do, or if you want to provide written comments, I'm happy to accept those. You could also send them through the mail to the City Hall as well, and we'll make sure to include those with the information that the City Council gets. If you have specific questions for any one of us, here is our contact information. So I provided the information on kind of the overview and the financial information. If you have questions on that, feel free to give me a call or an email. My contact information is on the top. Scott Ager provided the background on the public works information and streets and utilities. And there's Jason's information as well on managing the sewer project. He can help you get any information, provide you with any information you might be looking for on the city's sewer project in Capital City Estates. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jessica and help answer any questions that you might have. So Jessica, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you all for that information. I see a couple questions in here. I'll turn my video back on. Hello, hello. I see a few questions. I'll just start at the top as they came in. I'll shoot this one to you, Jason. When will the door-to-door engineering decisions be shared with lot owners?
Sorry about that. So I have been in touch with most of the property owners out there. I apologize if I haven't been in touch with you. You know, there was a lot of homes to go through, and most of the time what we did was actually just looked at the as-built record documents for the septic design, the original, and mostly took a schematic approach about how we were going to connect each home, and verified through, you know, field visits and make sure that we're not, you know, overlooking any obstacles. But I have been in contact with a lot of the homeowners when we're dealing with challenging lots, but I haven't been able to make contact with absolutely everybody out there, but I'd be happy to work with anybody on an individual basis. As far as those engineering decisions, you know, like I said, we took a schematic approach, and we sort of left it up to the contractor to field verify if they can find a better way to make the connection. We're working with homeowners as we're making the connections in the field. We're giving homeowners at least 5 days of notice to let them know when we're actually going to be on the property, making the connection, and what we actually planned on doing. For the most part, we were just trying to avoid as much mature landscaping as we can, and you know, any concrete or paving, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, sometimes, you know, we had to do what we had to do, and I think most everybody was kind of included in the plans. But feel free to reach out to me if you have any concerns about how we're addressing your property. So my contact information was up there. You can always give me an email, and I'd be happy to follow up with you on that.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention too, I think what we'll do is after the question and answer period, we'll have our contact information. I'll put the slide back up with our contact information after the question and answer period at the very end.
And I saw that question came in from James Elder. Looked up his contact information. I'd be happy to reach out to him as well, just to verify that we didn't overlook anything.
Thank you. Thank you both. Got a couple more here. Let's see. I think we answered this one about private septic systems in Chambers Estates. At some point, if someone is moving to sewer, who's responsible for that cost? I can give that one to Scott.
So yeah, it would be the property owner that's responsible for that cost. This Capital City project is a rare project. And as Jason noted, we're going to sewer about 411 lots. But the reality is there are 10,000 septic systems in Lacey and Lacey's UGA. The majority of those are in the UGA. So in terms of future projects, they would be prioritized by their impact to surface water, groundwater, and such. Chambers Estates, are the 1 acre lots are very large. I mean, that's pretty rare in this area. And that's part of the consideration as well. So yeah, ultimately it would be the property owners that are responsible for the cost of sewering.
Thanks, Scott. I'll get this one to Ryan. Ooh.
Can I add something on to that? I mean, I think the question almost was posed in a way that they were assuming that they were going to have to get connected to sewer. And that's not going to be the case as long as there's not sewer. I mean, and right now Chambers Estates isn't served by city sewer. So annexation, like you said before, is separate from being made to be connected to sewer. So as long as their septic system is working, they're not going to be forced to connect to sewer unless there's sewer out there and their septic system fails.
And they're within 200 feet of sewer.
Yeah, that was a helpful slide. I appreciate you having that in the slide deck. That was really helpful information. I'm going to give this to Ryan. It's a building department question. If someone has a project that's been permitted through Thurston County and then that parcel is annexed and that project is continuing, how do they finalize their project with the county or with the city?
Yeah, that's a great question. And typically what we do for annexations like this that have existing neighborhoods and existing kind of residents that, you know, might be doing a remodel project or something like that. What we'll do is allow them to continue to final that out through Thurston County. So, you know, when it comes down to it, you've had all the review done by Thurston County. You've paid all your fees to Thurston County. You should be paying and receiving that service from Thurston County rather than us coming in and filing that off at the end. So we would see that through, or the county would see that through for large projects, which I don't know of any in this area. When I say large projects, I mean like large commercial developments or new subdivisions or something like that. That is a different case. That's something where typically upon annexation, that's taken over by the city. We get all the records on that and we move that project forward. In this case, I'm not aware of any of those. If somebody knows about something that I don't, I'd appreciate you letting me know. But for those small, let's say remodel projects or permitting projects that you've gotten from Thurston County, we'll just have them see that through. The next time that you need a permit though, you need to come to the city to get a permit.
Thank you. Let's see. This one seems like a pretty straightforward question. Is Riddle Road fully considered a public road now?
Yes, it always has been.
Okay.
So there is a part of the Ruddle Road extension that's south of 67th, or excuse me, 66th, that was only half built for a period of time, but now it's fully built. So I'm not sure if that was part of the question or not.
Let's see, I'm not sure if I want to send this to Scott or Ryan. So when somebody is connected officially to sewer, when will they first see that billing on their specific, we'll say water bill? I'm guessing that's how they would see their sewer bill.
I guess I'll answer this probably within the following month, but Jason, have you had any other direction from Stephanie?
Yeah, so I think we're holding on to, I think we're making the connections monthly. And if somebody is connected, I think, so the way I understand it, their water bill, the wastewater charge is going to come on their water bill. But they're right when they're connected, that the rest of that billing cycle is not going to include a wastewater charge until the following month. So it won't be, I don't know, you can have up to 30 days before you're actually getting billed. So you'll consider or get basically the rest of the month at no charge and then get billed the following month. That's the way I understand it.
So Jason, for example, if you were to connect like the middle of, well, let's say it's March 8th right now. If we connected you today, you wouldn't be charged for your usage until starting April 1st, right?
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
There may be even a little bit more of a lag time in there when they get connected. Like I said, we're sending those connections on a monthly basis. So there's potentially a month and a half of free service, if you will.
Thank you both. Ryan, so someone wants to attend the public hearing April 1st. How would they get that notification or link to the Zoom meeting?
Yeah, so good question. If you are registered for this meeting and if you provided your email address, we'll send notice to everybody that participated in this meeting, you'll get a notice delivered to your email on the public hearing. We also will have certain statutory requirements, certain state requirements that we're required to do. So you'll see some signs posted in and around your neighborhoods that will have information on the annexation and ways to be able to participate in that, as well as a legal notice in the Olympian that we're required to put in as well. So it's safe to say that if you got registered for this, and if we have your email address, we'll provide you with a written notice of the public hearing with the ability to register for that as well.
Great, thank you. How, I don't know, Scott or Jason, how does annexation affect existing irrigation water wells?
It doesn't, there'd be no change.
Okay. Great. Let's see. I keep scrolling through. I've got a couple questions here. I'll try to pick up ones that aren't very hyper specific to a certain property. Are there other surrounding areas that are expected or not expected to annex? Maybe just general question. Other annexes areas around that?
Not in the immediate vicinity. This is I've kind of mentioned, this is the largest unincorporated island that we have in Lacey, and it's the last remaining unincorporated area that we could even potentially annex in the south area. Once you hit the kind of the Rainier Road trestle and go south of that, that's rural county, that's rural Thurston County, and we're not legally able to annex that. Properties can't actually be annexed until they're part of the urban growth area. That area is actually outside of our urban growth area. So we're not able to provide utility services to it, and we're not able to provide or to annex it. So there's no annexations, in the surrounding area that are pending because there's no other property to be annexed. We do have a couple additional annexations that are pending. We do have a large annexation around the regional athletic complex out Stillicum, at the intersection of Stillicum and Marvin Road, near that would include the Ostrom's Mushroom Farm. That is an annexation that has been underway for some time, and we may be nearing a decision-making point on that here sometime in the future. One additional annexation that I wanted to point out that's been a council priority, kind of much like this one, would be an annexation of some property around Pacific Avenue near the community center and the Lacey Senior Center. There's we have some park area kind of on the north side of Pacific Avenue called Lake Lois Park. Much of Lake Lois Park is not in Lacey, so that is a future unincorporated island that we will be annexing or taking on for annexation later this year after this one's completed. So those are the ones that are the larger ones that would be kind of pending around the community.
Great, thank you. This sounds like I'll just throw this one to Jason. I think I know the answer, but I will make sure we get an official answer. Someone bought their house. They tried to get a copy of septic as-built from the county. They could not provide them. Do we and Lacey have a copy of them?
So we wouldn't have the copy in our records, but the county does have a website where we can look it up by the parcel number. So I'm surprised that it wasn't available through the county, but I'd be happy to follow up with Jane. If you want to reach out to me, I can check our records from what I've found with the county and go over what is available for your property.
Thanks, Jason. I see a couple more questions. There sounds like there's still a little confusion related to when people need to connect to sewer, what are the circumstances and who pays. So maybe Scott, can you give kind of a quick high level overview of that again? Just kind of some quick, when
Sure.
people have to connect.
So if you live in Capital City, Jason's probably talked to you. So you've already made a commitment to connect. Otherwise, I'll just point this at Chambers Estates. So if your septic system fails, and you are located, your property line is located within 200 feet of a sewer main, then you will be required to connect, and all the expenses associated with that, would be yours. If you live in Chambers Estates and your septic system fails and your lot is not within 200 feet of the sewer main, then you would not be required to connect to sewer. You'd be allowed to install a new septic system. And being on a 1 acre lot, that's a little simpler than it is if you're on say a 1/4 acre lot.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Let's see. I'm trying to make sure I understand this question. I guess maybe I'll throw this to Ryan. Is there any issues with pocket gophers we need to deal with in this area to be annexed?
So, there is a little bit of a difference when it comes to how we regulate pocket gophers between jurisdictions in Thurston County. Thurston County is going through their own regulatory process. The City of Lacey has not. And so essentially what Thurston County has decided is that they act in place of the federal government when it comes to regulating pocket gophers. The City of Lacey basically defers all pocket gopher decisions to the federal government. And so if there are evidence of pocket gophers, if there's people have seen pocket gophers in the area, then what the City of Lacey would say is that you need to go to the federal government to address those concerns, that's not an issue that we regulate, nor do we permit. Now, having said that, we're not aware of any pocket gopher habitat or those kinds of things in that area. So it would be unlikely that would impact, let's say, a residential addition or something like that. The difference is that, if you do happen upon pocket gophers, if you do know that there's habitat and you willingly disturb that or destroy that, then you could be in some hot water with the federal government. And that's part of our, responsibilities, is to make sure that no matter what we do, that we're not taking, federal listed or endangered species, regardless of what jurisdiction we're in. The only difference, like I said, is that for the purposes of permitting, if there is pocket gopher in you're in Lacey, you have to go do that through the federal government versus at the county makes you go through their own regulatory process.
Thank you. Scott, roads. When should we expect the roads to be paved? I'm not sure which roads.
So I'm guessing that that's somebody within Capital City whose road is tore up right now. So I'm going to defer to Jason.
Okay.
As far as Rainier Road or 62nd, 64, in Chambers Estates, they're in pretty good condition. So they would not be scheduled for repaving anytime soon. So Jason?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the schedule with me to give you an exact answer, but I know they like to wait till the drier months to actually perform the paving operations. So, and we want to make sure we're getting, all the homes connected to pave all at once, or we don't want to break up the paving operations into multiple mobilizations. So I believe, we're probably going to be looking at paving here in the next few months, but I'd have to double check the schedule. And I would have, the schedule is continuously updated. So I'd check with our construction inspector, and I'd be happy to share that information with whoever asked the question. And whoever's living out in Cap City, we also have shared our construction inspector's contact information, so they can always reach out to Kevin Inman to get more accurate information as well. There was also another question about tapping a line to the edge of the street to eliminate digging up the street in the future. If we're talking about, that's James again. So yes, since we're talking about paving, we are stubbing to each lot, regardless of whether they're connecting with our project or not. And really, we're only talking about maybe 8 lots that didn't connect. So we will be stubbing to their property line, so we don't have to go back into the road and make that connection to the sewer main.
Thanks, Jason. That was next on my list. Ryan, Will this change someone's mailing address?
As far as the city that,
They're currently Olympia. Will it change to Lacey?
so yeah, it obviously, would change the mailing address. If you're in the Lacey city limits, then, your address would be Lacey, Washington, and I think your zip code is probably 98513. So instead of Olympia, Washington, the reason that most unincorporated Thurston County addresses are addressed as Olympia was because back in the day, Olympia had its own postal service sorting center. And so you could live outside of Tenino and your address would be Olympia, or you could live in Capital City Estates and your address was Olympia. Those are two obviously very different places, but neither of which being Olympia. As we urbanize and as we annex, then, your address would change from Olympia to Lacey. Now, having said that, if you were to keep writing on your envelopes that you live in Olympia, Washington, as long as the rest of it's the same, as long as your street address is the same, and as long as your zip code's correct, the post office will still deliver to your house regardless of what city it is on your mailing label. So rest assured that if your credit card bill, if you're annexed and if your credit card bill says Olympia, not Lacey, it's still going to get to you.
Thank you. Let's see. This is a county city question about outdoor fire pits and fireworks bans, and how will that change when we annex properties into the city?
That's a good question. I'm not too sure about the fire pits. You might want to contact Lacey Fire District 3 on questions about residential fire pits. The fireworks, yeah, that would be an important change. Is if you're going from unincorporated Thurston County to the City of Lacey, then City of Lacey regulations would apply. Since we do have a fireworks ban, then that's correct. You wouldn't be able to discharge fireworks any longer upon annexation. And that was something that was done several years back as part of a citywide. There was a vote on that to ban the fireworks in Lacey a number of years ago. So that's been something that has been on the books now for several years.
Thanks. I'll throw this one to Jason. Are you decommissioning tanks the same time you hook up people to sewer, or will that happen later?
For the most part, it depends on the way that the existing system is configured. A lot of times the septic systems are in the backyard and we turn the plumbing underneath the house and we're able to connect them without decommissioning the tank at the exact same time. And the contractor usually works with the septic company to come decommission a whole bunch of tanks at once. So a lot of times the septic decommissioning happens a little bit later. In most cases, I think that's going to be the case.
Great, thanks. I guess I can hand this to Scott. Chambers Estates, do they pay stormwater runoff taxes even though they have ditches? I know you touched a little bit on the stormwater system in that area.
Yes, every parcel owner in the city of Lacey pays a stormwater fee. So for single family residential, the 2021 fee will be almost $12 a month, $11.87 to be specific. And that's your contribution to the citywide effort. For example, I live in Kensington, just off of College and 45th. And, we pay an HOA fee to maintain our stormwater system, but we also pay every resident in there pays the $11.87 a month. And there again, that helps to finance projects, to improve water quality throughout the area, but it's a citywide fee.
Great, thanks. Let's see, this one is about billing again. And I think I know the answer, but I'll just pass it along about how often do we send our bills out? Sounds like in Seattle, it's bi-monthly just for wastewater, but how is ours different?
So almost everybody in Chambers Estates and Capital City is on Lacey Water. So with the exception of maybe a couple parcels in Chambers Estates. So they already receive a monthly billing that's just for water. But when they're connected to sewer, that monthly water billing will also now have a sewer billing and a stormwater billing. So it'll be monthly.
Great. Let's see. Mailing address. I mean, I love this. Some of them is trying to be very proactive and they want to know when they should officially change their address. Do they have to do that?
So I guess it's up to you as far as when you'd want to do that. I personally, if it was me, I would wait until the annexation is completed, and then start doing that. Again, I guess if it was me, I probably wouldn't worry too much about my bills. They're going to get to you anyways. It's probably more of if I was to sign up for new stuff or, let my friends and neighbors know, I'd put the new, mailing address on there and just make that change, gradually over time. Because like I said, as long as your street address is correct and as long as the zip code is good, the mail folks will find you. And if you want to be proactive, by all means, you let everybody know. But I'd probably wait until the annexation was complete, probably sometime this summer. And you'll know. We'll keep you all in the loop, obviously, as the process goes along on what that status is. And two, you'll get notification through that census process and stuff, as far as we'll have to figure out how many people live in your home and that kind of thing. So you'll have some good indications that the annexation is progressing or moving forward, and what the timelines are associated with that as we get a little bit further into this process.
Great, thanks. We're almost at 6 o'clock, so I just want to scroll through the last couple of questions here and see if there's a few that jump out that might benefit the group. Maybe this isn't for Jason. It's just about, after tanks have been decommissioned, when can they expect landscaping to be fixed?
That one I'm going to have to defer to the construction inspector, but a lot of times it's really, they do a little bit of a landscaping, kind of smooth things out. And on a lot of those connections, you can hardly tell that they were already even there. But we also are kind of waiting on weather too for sprinkling seed and that sort of thing. So I think some of it's kind of on a house by house basis. But we'd be happy to again share the construction inspector's information if they would like to reach out and get more specifics on their property.
Great, thanks. I'll end with this last one about backflow preventers, and tell us more about that, Scott or Jason.
So yeah, the backflow prevention program applies to the entire City of Lacey water network. And so even right now, like Chambers Estates and Capital City, backflow prevention applies. Our City of Lacey water utility serves much of the UGA. But there's an annual inspection required when you do have it. If you have irrigation, a sprinkler system plumbed in, then you have to have a backflow prevention device. If you have an irrigation well, then you should have a backflow prevention device. I hope that answered the question. If not, contact me and I'll get you more specific information.
Great. Thanks, Scott. I'm going to wrap this up and say maybe Ryan can put that slide back up with all of your emails.
Yeah.
Because I think we have a few more comments in here, and those are wonderful comments you can continue to send to Ryan to collect for public comment, and of course, public hearing on April 1st, which Ryan will tell you more about again if you'd like.
So there, just one more time on the screen, there is our contact information. If you have again questions about general annexation, timing, public hearing comments, those kinds of things, my contact information there is at the top. General public works questions, utilities, roads, Scott Egger can help answer those. And then again, with the utility project for the sewer project at Capital City Estates, Jason is going to be your contact person there. So If you have any other questions, feel free to either call us or send us an email. We'd be happy to get back to you just as soon as possible.
Thank you. I'm going to say thanks, and this is recorded, so tell your neighbors if they weren't able to come tonight, they can see it on the City of Lacey YouTube channel. We'll say goodnight. How about that?
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.